Hey, welcome to Newsroom Teresa Lusk, and I am here with an amazing guest today. We're about to have so much fun, so hang on tight because we're going to learn about energy, oil, gas, so much more. We're here with RT Rey Treviño. Welcome to the show.
Teresa, thank you so much for having me on today. This is exciting. I don't do live very often, so this is awesome.
Well, don't worry about the live, Rey. You know what? That's what makes it so much fun, that you get to be very real. And so the people who are watching, they're going to have fun. One of the things that I love to do is, of course, educate people. And I'm so excited because I get to learn about you. So here's what I want you all to know, those of you who are watching and those of you who are going to watch. Rey Treviño has been featured on C-SPAN, WBAP, Real America's Voice, and GB News and more, and where he shares expert commentary on the oil and gas industry. You're important here in Texas, Rey.
Thank you very much. I'd like to think that all the independent oil and gas people and workers here in Texas are important. One thing people don't know is that the independents, I'm not talking about the Chevrons and the Shells, but the Texas independent oil producers produce over 50% of the oil here in this great state.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, we're going to learn about that. So, but before we begin, I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Has this always been what you planned on doing? Is this like you said, I want to be an oil guy?
No, actually.
Oil executive. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I take it back. It's not the oil guy. He's the oil executive.
Oh, an oil guy is okay. We wear many hats, and anybody in the industry is always ready to do any job that's required of them to do. No, this was actually not on my bucket list until really 2011, as a lot of people have heard our story. My father was a software engineer by trade that just happened to start investing in oil in the late 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. And when you watch the roller coaster that was after the big bust in 85, 86, it only continued to go up for a good while. So he caught the wave at the right time. Mm-hmm. And in 2011, he asked me and my brother to come form an oil and gas company with him called Pecos Country Energy. Wow. And we were like, okay. And so next thing you know, we're out there in West Texas, just slinging chain on drilling rigs and doing completion work with some of the majors and just really getting a real education in oil and gas hands-on experience.
Wow. So what was your background before that?
Actually, I got my undergrad at North Texas in something called Organizational Development and Behavior.
Oh.
And so that's code for get out of college and maybe go do something with your life. And so I was in banking, had a whole finance path that I really thought I was going to take, but it just didn't take. So we did oil and gas.
Well, hey, aren't you thankful though? I mean, aren't you thankful? Come on.
I'm very thankful. One thing I always tell people is, oil and gas paid for my education, paid for my life growing up, and you didn't know it because you're just you're a little kid and you want to play soccer, and then you want to play the big boy soccer. That costs more, but we always did everything that we wanted to do for the most part. So talking about oil and gas, my dad's been in it since 1984, and it's just pretty much a blessing to be a part of it now in a way that just gives back to everybody.
I bet. So, I think this is a really important topic. And I told you before that I think there's a lot of Texans, of course, Americans in general, who don't understand this. So for me, this is like and I'm pretty intelligent. I do a lot of research, but this is one of those topics that I'm just like, oh, do I really need to get into that? So I thought, why not bring in the expert to talk about it? So what's the first thing that you think Texans and Americans in general need to know about the oil and gas industry?
That the oil and gas industry provides the majority of their electricity. That is the first thing. Well, I had a great conversation yesterday, actually, with Road Dog Trucking, a gentleman named Mark Willis. He has a show there. And it's really surprising how many people think when we turn on the light switch, that's the electricity being created.
Okay.
And that's nothing but further from the truth. That electricity is created somewhere else, whether it's by oil, natural gas, nuclear reactors, then you got wind and solar and hydro.
Okay.
So the electricity's got to be made from somewhere. And even if we want to plug in all these electric cars, we still have to create that energy.
There is a misconception about that, huh? That the EV vehicles, they're going to be the answer to everybody's problems. Is that correct?
Yes. No. That was something else we talked about is the electric vehicles. They're great. I don't own one. I don't see the financial value in owning one today. But even if we switched everybody over to those today, we don't have a power grid strong enough. So how are we going to get the electricity to these power grids to charge these electric vehicles. And that's where oil, really, I'm hoping natural gas as a long-term solution and also nuclear as a long-term solution. But if we shut down those today and just had wind and solar, we would not have any of the power that we need to really even move the country.
So there's a lot to this. So I asked you the other day, do you go out into the field? Because I just thought he's a clean cut guy. He's dressed nice. Surely he's not out there digging and drilling.
Oh yes,
what
yes,
are we doing?
Yeah, no, I'm out there. You know, we had a fun January and February. It was really cold. And by really cold, it was a very surprising year. But we had some wells that might stop producing, so we were out there fixing them, getting them going again. We just got done with a very successful 3-well project, and I was out there. You know, now I'm not slinging chain and doing that anymore, but you know, we're still out there watching everything that's going on. I'm moving pipe if needs to. I'm loading up a trailer if I need to drive it from the supply house back out to the rig. So yes, so we're out there all the time, and it's just really fun to be out there.
Is that how it all started? Your dad just said, "All right, boys, we're gonna go out to the field. Get your hands dirty. Like, take off the nice blazer here. Take off the nice crocodile boots. What was it?"
Yes, literally. I mean, what happened. And I don't think, I mean, you couldn't have described it better. I'm kind of caught off guard. When dad decided, that was it. When dad decided for us to do this, he goes, "Okay, now I need y'all to go out to West Texas and learn this." Ooh. And we were like, "What? Wait a minute. I thought we were just going to be buying more non-op working interest and doing it in that route." He goes, "Well, yeah, but we're going to be buying more, and we got to make sure that we know what we're doing and how we're investing to grow our business, and we got to be able to learn as much as we can." So he shipped us off, and we basically were third-party work for the next 5 years out there doing the work while we were just continuing to build Pecos Country Energy and our family office. And so we just continued to reinvest while me and my brother were out there working late cold shifts. And I was 26 already, and so I'm working with the 19-year-olds, just slinging chain, being a goon for the first year.
Hey, and from 19 to 26, you're like the old man of the field, right?
The old man,
which is crazy, right? But yes. Okay, so one of the things I really love is, and we're going to talk about oil and policy, et cetera. But I love talking about business.
Okay.
And so I love what you're saying too, because there's people out here, while we're going to talk about oil, this is important, because what you're saying, you're pulling back the curtain and you're giving us an explanation of what it looks like to build something. And it's, you get yourself in there.
Right.
And sometimes you have to learn while working for somebody else, doing some hard work. And has that been part of your success? Would you say that's key to your success and being able to be an influencer in the oil industry?
I don't know about being an influencer, but just watching other people in charge do their job and learning how those guys are out there talking to all the employees, just working, bringing over a handful of Gatorades and here you go, guys. And all those things have really been just so eye-opening and amazing. And when you look at all the family offices that are heavy in oil and gas, all of them started out there as well. And I remember when I first got out there, I was like, oh my gosh. But when you get out there and you really just start to do the work and you're not afraid to say yes, kind of like I said at the beginning, you know, we wear all hats. It's like, hey, whatever needs to be done, we got to get the work done. And the ingenuity of the oil field worker is just amazing to me, because I always describe it as the movie Apollo 13, where they, you know, throw down on the table just a bunch of different parts and go, this is what we have to fix the problem. And nothing could be further from the truth. It is the truth, it is the truth, that it's like, hey, if we got certain parts out there and that's all we got, and the closest place is 3.5, 4 hours away, we're going to make it work the best that we can.
Oh, I love that. I love that concept though, because it's those who are most successful are the ones looking for solutions to problems.
Right.
So that's wonderful. I heard you say something, you kind of differentiated between family business and like maybe a Shell, an Exxon. Explain the difference to our viewers, and why are more family businesses, are they more important to the oil business, or explain it to us?
The easy answer is yes. And it's not just because we're a family office as well, but at the time, so the difference is basically we're private, you know, private company, private money. the Shells, the Exxons of the world, those are all stock option. You got a lot of people you answer to, and the more oil they make, the more their reserves go up, the more their stock price goes up. But the other reason why family offices and the independent oil and gas companies are so important is because we are still the ones out there finding new fields, finding new reservoirs. We are still the wildcatters, even though I use the word a little bit more as a like the days of truly just taking a rock, throwing it somewhere, or where the chicken lays an egg, drilling a well. Those days are gone. But we are the ones that are out there finding these fields, proving that there's a reserve. Then the Exxons of the world will come in and buy that.
Okay. And that's why it's important, because you guys are out there doing work that the Exxons aren't willing to do.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. Now the other side of the coin is they're willing to do the big heavy legislation lifting sometimes. So they definitely have their place. And one great example is there was a desert lizard out in West Texas, and a good friend of mine and a real energy expert, David Blackman, was really fighting against that lizard because the EP came in against in the the Biden administration and said, these are endangered, we can't drill anymore. Well, if that was on my lease as a family office, if that came down, I'd be like, well, I'm not drilling. I'm done. Or at least theirs. Like, I can't drill. Let's go find another place. However, the Exxons of the world and Chevrons would, they'll hire 6 biologists, 2 engineers, and in 6 months prove why that lizard is not endangered, and we keep going.
Wow.
So everybody has their place.
Okay, now you're talking politics. Oh my gosh. So now you're getting into my favorite subject. So why would I'm trying to understand, why would you say I'm out? And they're like, no. I understand it's politics and money, but why would an independent company not go for it?
Because it's the money.
That's it.
I can't hire on, a half a dozen biologists overnight.
Okay.
And then get the research and development done. And it's really just the research to prove and get a great deal done and go to the federal government and say, hey, y'all are wrong.
This is fascinating, though, to think that that you have to hire all these people just to prove to the government's red tape.
Yeah.
Really, because that's what it is at the end of the day, right? And then they say, no, let me prove to you why we can't drill here.
Exactly.
But it's funny because you're still thinking money. I mean, that's great. I'm glad they're going to drill, but I'm still thinking money. I'm like, what a coincidence. You've got money to hire that many people. And suddenly the answer is yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting.
Very interesting.
So I don't know if anybody who's watching or who's going to watch is aware of these pieces. And that's what I think is fascinating, because see, now you've got my attention, because now you're talking about the different steps behind all this. All I think is you're going to go drill. You got your cool boots on, your hat. Y'all wear hats, I suppose.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, and then what? I mean, there's these cool steps, all these little political things. What can you share with us? Anything else that you run into that might be political and behind closed doors that people like myself don't get to see?
Well, that's a great question. Here in the great state of Texas, we really we're blessed that we do really have a pro-oil government in Texas, but also we're blessed that we own all our minerals underneath the ground. So we own the mineral rights. Other parts of the nation, they don't. The true BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management, owns all of those rights. So for Pecos, our operating company, to go into New Mexico or Colorado to drill, the red tape is horrific. And it's the same thing in the Gulf of Mexico, that, before the Trump administration, you would have to jump through so many hoops and spend, capital on just the hope I can drill these wells. And then with the federal government being who they are and controlling the federal land, they could even then just wipe it out like that. And so those are things that we try to avoid so we don't have those stories.
So help me understand as well. Is this those who are anti-drilling, et cetera? What is the real deal behind that? Is it really, do they really care about the earth? I mean, or is there more to this that we don't get to see even in the media?
I don't know. I know that people that are anti-drilling, I don't think understand. I'll say their name once. There's 2 outdoor brands, and they create amazing products. I'll say them both, North Face and Patagonia. They create lightweight, heavy, durable, long-lasting gear that people that are out in the elements use, and they're rough and tough. It takes the hydrocarbons from oil and gas to create those two brands and build their products. North Face is definitely anti-oil. Patagonia is definitely anti-oil. They will fund people going out to oil rigs. They will float out there on kayaks, which are made of plastic, which are hydrocarbons, and go protest these oil and gas rigs. And then you get all the people that are like out places and they're drinking bottled water. And it's like,
oh,
same thing. That's a plastic. So I think the lack of education, and it truly boils down to that we are now in a generation that doesn't know life without the internet, that doesn't know what it's like to go outside and actually do things, but also people don't know, and this generation doesn't know that the electricity doesn't come from the switch on the side of the wall.
Thank you for letting us all know. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about the oil and gas industry that the media really likes to write on?
The best one that I always talk about is that we don't like the environment. When you actually go out to an oil field, you go talk to anybody that's in the oil and gas industry, we are all conservationists at heart. Yes, we love to hunt and fish, but 99% follow the rules and regulations of what size of fish to catch, which ones release, what we can and cannot shoot and kill. And, that is a true conservationist. Somebody that's out there cares about Mother Earth. And that to me is the one thing that I think is the truth. And also that I think we don't care about the politics for the most part. Absolutely. It plays a role. Okay. However, when you're out on a rig for 2 weeks straight, you barely might have any radio, but you're out there working 12-hour shifts, eat, sleep, and do it again. You're not paying attention to all the rhetoric out there. And so I just say that, we're out there, we're doing a job, and we're doing it not for one side or the other. We're out there doing the work. So to me, the biggest misconception again is that, hey, we're just here to do a job. We're not here to play politics, and that we do care about the environment. And when you actually look at oil and natural gas, it actually has provided so much positives for the environment. It's not even funny.
I love what you're covering, because I think that is important. I like to correct media, whether it's conservative or liberal, because I have a problem with lying media. And so I think that this is important because you said we're not trying to deal with either. This is not about either side. This is about, I care about your provision, and we are conservationists. And so that's really, really important. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody really cover that in that manner. So that's really good. What are some policies that are in place or that have been in place that have affected your work? And how does that even affect somebody who may, let's say they're more like, save the earth, don't drill anything?
When it comes to the policies, I've got to kind of just reiterate what I've already said, but I will add the EPA involved. Okay. The EPA was used as a weapon against us under the last administration. And so the policies weren't even real policies. They were rules that were created by the EPA that all of a sudden we had to follow.
Wow.
So, and that's a federal thing. So, that was really difficult, and that would be worrisome. However, again, here in Texas, we don't worry about the federal, because if some kind of federal mandate were to come down here in the state of Texas, it would be a very different story. Like, we're not going to roll over, especially the independents, because, obviously we all make a dollar from this, but also we're going to shut down as a country. Prices would skyrocket, and that wouldn't be good for the economy. So, the EPA, which was once a great thing, we got rid of, we had the Clean Water Act. All right. We got rid of the acid rain in the Northwest. We don't talk about acid rain anymore. So there's all these great acts that the EPA has done. What they just need to understand is that at oil and gas, we are here actually providing good, first of all, obviously jobs, but also we're just helping the environment. I know that doesn't sound like it's a lot, but it really is.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's interesting that you're even saying that, because usually people who who I would assume people who do your line of work don't always speak highly of the EPA. So I think that's a good thing. You're showing your true colors here, that you really are just trying to service people in general. Not everything is about politics. It's about provision.
Yeah, no, Lee Zeldin, who's taken over since President Trump came back into office, is doing a great job. The EPA is very important. They've done great things for us as a country. And you go look at an oil rig in Venezuela or in Russia or in even Kuwait or Qatar. They don't have the same rules we do. And they don't follow the same rules. No different than China with all their coal power plants that they've got. I don't know the numbers. I might be exaggerating, but they got over 100 coal power plants coming on over the next X amount of years, because they know how important power is, not necessarily clean burning power, but how important power is. And so that to me is what's really important.
Wow. What are some other things that somebody who's not exposed to your industry needs to know? Like, what are some important things that we really need to know? Even questions that we don't know how to ask, especially, Ray, when it comes down to the ballot box, because you keep bringing something up, and it's President Biden's administration. Now, there's a lot of things that concerning policy that I was in complete disagreement with. And so those things are clearly important at the ballot box. What are some other things that even Texans, we live in the greatest state in America. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so arrogant about it, but we're amazing. I mean, we really are. So far, we have a great government, as far as more conservative and fighting for the things we believe. But what are some other things that a person who's not really educated or informed, I should say, not educated, but informed?
I think the biggest thing is really that oil and gas doesn't discriminate. We don't see red, we don't see blue. Every car that's made has some form of oil and gas in it. Now, we're not the ones that are making it, these products, but we provide the ingredients for these products. When you're at a gas station, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican bumper sticker or a Democrat sticker, that gasoline is going into their gas tank. We're not here to do that, and I think that is what I do believe is very important. Is like, hey, we're just here to do a great job and provide for our families. I do know that as an industry, we do not do a great job in talking about all the good things that we do for this country and for the world. For an example, a few years ago, ExxonMobil refurbished one of their old refineries down in the Beaumont area, and it was able to handle 250,000 barrels of American sweet crude or Texas sweet crude oil. That's excellent. That means we're getting even more away from foreign oil and becoming more and more oil independent. However, Exxon didn't make a big stink about it. They just did it. But they have the bankroll, obviously, to get out there and go, look what we're doing. We are part of the solution. And they truly are. But you know what? To some degree, to get out there and say something like that, even under this administration, is hard to do sometimes for the bigger boys, because so much politics is wrapped up in what they do.
Okay, now you're continuing to speak my language here with the politics and the foreign oil. So explain a little bit to us. Why is it important for us to quit depending on foreign oil so much, and how does that affect Texas, of course, but the United States?
Right. Well, it's going to be hard. We produce right now record-breaking numbers of oil in America. We produce 14 million barrels of oil a day. And it is proven that last year alone, Texas produced over 40% of that oil on its own. We use as a country about 21 million barrels of oil a day.
Wow.
So even if we were doing all the refining of our sweet crude, we still don't have enough. So it is very important to continue to have those good relationships with OPEC, Qatar. Qatar, they're part of it, I believe. But with these other countries, but also we need to have good relationships with pro-America countries that share some of the same values. values. Obviously, country to country, it's different based on religious values. But hey, we just need countries that are pro-America and providing here in America.
That's good. So give me an example of a couple of countries that are pro-America.
Obviously, OPEC always is. Saudi Arabia is actually a very good ally of ours. A lot of the media likes to think that they don't have a good relationship, President Trump and that the royal family over there. However, they really do. And so that's a very important relationship. Canada, believe it or not, is a very good relationship. They have great oil there that they send here to America, and the same thing with Mexico. We get that from there, and we need to make sure that we keep those two good. I understand what the Trumpers doing. However, I do think that in long term is they need us just like we need them. So that's why I understand what the Trumpers doing.
Well, and that's what I was about to come at, because I think, you brought up Canada and Mexico, both countries of which the Trump administration's, shaking up a little bit with his
bravado.
Whatever you want to call it, we'll call it that. Is it possible to continue cultivating healthy relationships and not let that get in the way of our oil-based relationships? I mean, do you really think that?
I think so. Any good leader can do the right thing and build out a good relationship, especially within the oil and gas industry. Again, it's not going away. OPEC knows that we still need their oil, and the world needs their oil, just like the world needs the American oil, which is really amazing. They also need our liquid natural gas, and that's going to be the next big play. Saudi Arabia and OPEC did try to destroy our natural gas shale boom back in 2015, 2016. When they did that, they hurt themselves financially, and they learned that you can't mess with Texas or the United States. Okay. And that's one thing I do want to say that I'm pretty proud of as being somebody in the oil and gas industry, is that during this last administration, we literally had one hand tied behind our back, but we continued to produce record numbers and fight against the administration, because what we really felt was we had an administration that was trying to kill all of our jobs, and that's not cool.
No. And that's where I want to go. That's where I want to know. But what's the deeper motive? Do Americans really understand the deeper motive behind that? What are the assumptions? I mean, it's just an assumption. I guess
deeper motives of killing the oil and gas industry.
Yeah. I mean, I think the prior administration.
Without getting into conspiracy theories, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And they want to, I understand about cleaning up the world, and I do believe that we do a great job of it already. So other than saying, hey, they want to control, and even that may be getting into conspiracy theories, but, they just truly are leaning on the, climate change, global warming that's been around now for about 40, 50 years.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I'm a little more leaning towards the conspiracy theory place here. So you already know, Ray, that I'm going to be a little bit more like, let's just mix this up a little bit.
I mean, we can. I mean, if you want to mix it up.
Well, I mean, if we're honest, I mean, it makes sense, right? It's kind of like the prior administration really trying to take down small businesses. I mean, to me, I think this is kind of similar. It's not supporting the small business world as much, so that there can be more government control. I mean, that is a usually a liberal Democrat kind of ideology, and not that every single person does. It can vary, but in general.
Well, you look at the fact that we haven't added any more. We just opened up one more nuclear power plant in Georgia, I think 2 or 3 years ago. We haven't done any more of that. And when you look at all the subsidies that have gone into wind and solar, and then you look at all the companies that went into wind and solar, and you see who was a part of those in the government. You can't control a Texas oil man. Okay, you can't.
Say it again.
You can't control a I'm sorry, and I'm not talking. But I'm talking about the real game changers, the Hunts, the Moncriefs. I mean, there's so many. I mean, even the Rockefellers. Okay, and I know they're not Texan, but you couldn't control them, and you can't control oil. But if you can control the next power source, that's where my conspiracy theories go into, and which then makes it government dependent. So that's my little bit of without really diving into conspiracy theories.
But I mean, some of that's not conspiracy theory. Some of that's common sense, right? I mean, truly, you're just pointing us to the pieces, and I think intelligent Americans are going to make up their own mind. Intelligent Texans.
I love the movie Men in Black, and I like when Tommy Lee Jones says a person is smart, but when people don't understand, that's a different story. So yes.
So you're helping us understand.
I don't know. Yeah. I just want to share my thing. I believe in God, but I definitely also don't believe in shoving the Bible down somebody's throat. Yeah. So I can just share what I know.
Sure.
And if somebody wants to fact check me or, say, okay, let me look and say, oh, wow, oil and gas does help. That's great.
Oh, trust me. if people are going, listen, I'm all about researching. Like, I'll listen to what you have to say. And I think, if I really care about this topic, I'm going to research it a little further based on what you're saying to see, can I prove this? Can we really confirm? Yes. Now, I've done enough research in other areas and understanding the dynamics of a government. So it makes sense to me. Right. So it makes sense to me. Okay. So anything else you want to cover about oil? Because I want to talk about just business principles here in just a second.
Okay.
But anything else? Because I don't want to leave our awesome Texans and good old Americans without the information that we need. I want them to leave here going, I really learned something about oil today.
Oh my gosh. How much time do we really have? There's so much to it, from obviously producing oil to that you truly still, there are still brand new families that are created out of oil every day. I'm a firm believer that oil and gas has created the most millionaires. Real estate has sustained the most millionaires, but it is a great industry to be a part of. And the mentality of the Wild Wild West is still in it, just from the fact that, hey, you know what? We got to get the job done, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I love that part of it.
Well, I mean, you're kind of taking us right into the business aspect, because I was going to ask you, what can people do? I'm not, other than to go out there to record how awesome you guys are and drilling and whatever. I don't know enough to go, I'm just going to start being an oil girl, but then aren't there investments and things like, how does that work?
Yes, no, there's always investments, and there's so many different ways to do it. But what I always recommend individuals to do is hey, you know what, find a group that's actually part of the project that it's got a good track record as far as being in the industry. And if they ever say something like, oh man, we've never hit a dry hole, kind of raise a flag a little bit, being like, wait, how have you not? I mean, even the majors miss every now and then.
Okay.
And, but yeah, I mean, that's something I always say, because, a lot of people get into it just because of the tax deductions, not rebates, not, credits, a true tax deduction that is in place with the IRS, that people that invest in oil and gas drilling projects, they get great tax deductions against their capital gains or even their just W-2 income.
Wow.
Yes. And that's something a lot of people don't know. And a lot of people, including my father at one point, thought that oil and gas was just for these second and third generation families that already had it. And that's further from the truth. And right now, with oil prices where they are, I would say get ready, because we're going to be in for another great upswing here in the field. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's great to know. Okay, so you do you make those opportunities available, or?
We do. We do. We're getting better at talking about it. We've we're a private family company, and we've always been able to bring on some friends and family, and we've here recently started to go out and offer oil and gas drilling ventures to other individuals out there, whether it is another family office or even just a private person looking to get those tax deductions. And it's really been a great joy. We've been doing that now quietly for about 2 years. We're going to get a little bit more bravado, as I used earlier, and letting people know about that. And that'll be a new change for me to really talk about. But we're really excited, and people really do get the tax deductions. And what's always the hardest is talking with CPAs that aren't aware of oil and gas benefits in the tax world. And those are always the individuals that I feel are like, okay, that's not real. And it's like, it really is. And unfortunately, I'm not a a tax guy, but we do have some great individuals that we work with on the CPA and wealth management side that can literally pull out the IRS tax code and go, here's where it is.
Well, those are the intelligent ones.
Yes,
those are the ones that know how to cash in on there.
Exactly.
That's true.
And we really enjoy it, because again, when I mentioned earlier, that's like you want to make sure you're working with people that are putting their money where their mouth is. Mm-hmm. And that is what we do. These projects that we offer to other individuals, we are 100% involved. We actually own 100% of it already. And we're only selling a small portion of, or offering a small portion of it because I like it. It's like, this is how I eat, is on production that comes out of the ground. And that's how we build. So we only do a small piece of it. And also we operate, and which also saves our investors so much money on the back end, especially once the wells are producing, because our operating company is a part of us, which also means it's a part of them. So anything that we charge to the operating company comes out of everybody's distribution, not just my investors.
Okay. That's very cool. Well, that's really good to know. You are the host of The Crude Truth.
Yes, ma'am. I am.
And I've been on that show, and it was so much fun. We had so much fun, and I've seen some of your other guests, and you just, you do a great job. What made you start the podcast?
My dad actually. And I
he said, Ray, you're going to start it?
No. No, I had a chance to do a couple of podcasts about 3 years ago. I went through this little season of being able to be on other people's podcasts. And I had a good friend named Jeff Crilly, and he has a podcast business, a studio. And he was like, hey, you need to have your own podcast. And I'm like, no. And if anybody out there knows him, I mean, he's the best.
That's Jeff.
And that's Jeff.
That's Jeff.
And I was like, I'm okay. And he goes, okay, no problem. So we again, we're friends. So we would hang out and do that. And 2 months later, after he was like, hey, you can do a podcast. I'm like, no, I'm okay. The next thing you know, my dad caught me one day watching one of my podcasts. He goes, you did real good.
Oh.
He goes, you could probably do that. And I was like, oh. I'm like, well, that's funny you mentioned that, because we actually got an opportunity to do that. And it's like, well, let's talk about it. And so we did it. And it has been such a joy. I remember when I first launched it, I was afraid that I wasn't going to get on enough guests. In the first 12 months of the show, my goal was to do one show a month and just kind of get out there. I ended up doing 17 shows in the first 12 months. Awesome. And now I think I average just under 4 a month. And what a great way to really get to know people, but also just build a network outside of the traditional ways of going to this event or that event. I've also learned so much from so many great people. Like I've had on Congresswoman Sparks out of Illinois, who is an actual Ukrainian by birth. Yes. And she is now a Republican Congresswoman. Yeah. I've had on the wonderful Beth Van Dyne, and she is such a fighter for all Americans. Also Congressman Elsie, and just some other great individuals as well.
You had a Bush on your show.
I've had a Bush. I've had a good. I'm going to call him a buddy. I hope he agrees. George P. Bush on a couple of times, and it's always great to get insight from individuals like that, because whether all those individuals I mention it, say it, agree with it, but they all are connected in some way, right? Yeah. And they have more clout and more pull on what's going on. Maybe not necessarily the price of oil, but in how oil is going to be dictated, as much as I hate to say that. And of course, it then takes other individuals that work alongside of them. But, I've also had on great life coaches. I've had on wonderful people in other industries. I've also had on some great lobbyists that are just amazing people. So I've really enjoyed the show because it gets me a chance to meet brand new people that I may not ever have gotten a chance to meet, but it also gives me a chance to learn about what they're doing. And that I really enjoy.
Which is, I think, a great business principle.
Yes.
Connect.
Connect, and don't be afraid to always be learning.
There you go. Yeah. I did notice that about you. I was watching your show on, remind me, the Russian gentleman.
Vasily.
Yeah,
yes, I was on his show.
Yes. And you're very humble, very humble. I said, well, look at Ray, look at the oil executive being very humble. So I appreciated that. I thought it was great. There are people who need to understand the connection between politics and oil, just as concerned people. I know I'm kind of going back just a little bit and then we'll forward. Is it important to be involved politically when you're dealing with oil? I mean, obviously the whole oil thing is definitely something that's important to everybody. So is it important to be connected politically? You know what I mean? Like, and does that matter?
The easy answer and the right answer to say is that, you know what, I think everybody just needs to get out and vote and do what they can. And if they have an issue, definitely talk to your local congressman or woman.
Okay.
Yes.
So we do need to be involved with that.
You have to, and it starts at the community level.
Oh. Wow.
In your hometown, wherever you're at, because that's where you're raising your children or where you've decided to set roots and you're going to be there after that. So it is very important to start at the local and then go from there. Okay.
Very good. Now I'm going to go back to the business thing.
Okay.
Tell us a couple of things that you've learned in doing this business. You already said, you got in there, you did the hard work, the messy work, really, Ray. Right. Like you went out there, and I would love to hear just also what it's like to be there for 2 weeks. I mean, do you get to sleep on a bed? I mean, what is that like? But then we want to talk about the business principles of it real quick.
Well, the business principles to me are, I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I haven't done already. Mm-hmm. And it's not 2 weeks; it's 8 weeks.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, 8 weeks.
At a time.
We'll be 8 weeks at a time out there. And usually everybody's on shifts like 2 or 3 weeks. But sometimes, if the work is there, you keep going. And it's always fun. But one thing that I did learn a long time ago, it's either if I take out the trash, have somebody else take out the trash, or the trash just sits there and builds, I get paid the same. And it's okay to do those jobs. It's also okay to continue to learn. And when you don't know something, it's okay to say, I don't know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Because in the oil and gas industry, that is a life that could be on the line if you don't say, hey, I don't know how to do this properly, because you never know what's going to happen. And again, I also say yes, because it's going to give you an opportunity to do something new, and give you a chance to learn something. The other thing that I really enjoy is just being able to work hard. You talk about messy. I don't think in any position that you never stop getting messy. Just your messes are different. The other thing is, though, is how do you learn from those messes so that the next time you do the job, it's a lot nice and neat and smooth.
I love it.
Kind of like when you make a cake, right? The first time a little kid makes a cake, it's batter everywhere, eggs everywhere. And by the time you're done, you got a spick and span. By the time you learn how, you got rid of all the mess. And you're just doing it in a flow.
Those are awesome. That's your book, right? That's your book. That's your book right there. I mean, I already published your book. You didn't even know it. I'm already thinking about your book. I've got the cover done and everything.
Oh no!
Lessons learned from the oil executive.
No.
Don't take that title, anybody. That is his book title.
No. The title of my book is going to be "How to Make $1 Million." Write a book to tell somebody how to make $1 million. That's how it is.
For sure. Wow. Well, one of the things that you keep bringing up that I think is honorable and admirable is your father's influence. That, he's like, boys, come on, we're going to do this. We're going to get dirty. Well, come on with me. Let me teach you. And then, of course, he, when you were watching your own show, your own guest appearance, he says, you're good at that. Yeah. That's great. And then you're like, hey, how that seems like to be such an important part as well.
He is, to me and both my younger brothers, he is the father, though, that on Saturday mornings during college, if we were in town, he's, pinching our toes at 6:30 in the morning after a Friday night going, come on, we got to do yard work before church. And so, or, he's the guy that's like, hey, all right, what are we doing here? And so he's always been that guy. He's definitely smarter, and so are both my two younger brothers than me. And I think also learning from them is very important. And it's always just a blessing. I think so. I know not everybody can do what we do as far as working with family.
Right.
I admire those that have great families and don't work together. I also admire those that have great families and do work together. I think the important part is that you can shut it off, if that makes any sense, to where, if me and my son go over there, it's like, hey, what's going on? And that's just father, son, and grandson time, rather than I told you not to do this.
Yes, yeah, that's cool.
And he's a guy. I mean, he's a guy that believed in what he was doing, and really believed in me and my brother to say, hey, let's go start a company together. Let's do this. And we were like, we prayed about it. I was like, all right, let's go do it. And we haven't looked back. It's been a blast, and we're only want to continue.
That's beautiful. They prayed about it. They did it as a family, and look at you still working together. That's wonderful, especially working with family. So you've said something, and you said it on the other another podcast as well. That this is why I said, oh, he's a humble guy. You said your brothers are smarter than you. I've got an older sister. I'm not going to say that about her.
Well, I'll say this for if anybody out there that knows me and is my that talks to me and my brothers, if I were to sit here right now and say that I'm smarter than them, they would be calling me.
That's so funny.
You're such a liar, RC.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to get to. Is tell me something. You say that about them, but what would they say about you?
Goodness, that I probably am probably more of the. I don't know. Maybe that I'm the bigger dreamer than as far as, and by what I mean by that is, we're going to do this. And I see that,
You're visionary.
That vision. Yeah. And because sometimes, it's just like, wait, what are we doing? And, but, I am the oldest and with that comes a lot of different mentality.
Oh, yes.
But I also know that, hey, without those two, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And they've got so much better quality. So, I mean, one of them is literally a chemical engineer, for goodness sakes. So,
Well, that's great. I appreciate your humility. I'm sorry I can't get on that boat with my sister. No, I love her. Right? She's very smart. I think we're very smart and intelligent in our own right.
Yes.
Really, right? Because she brings things to the table, et cetera. So
I can say that.
Cool.
I like. Yes, me and my brothers are very smart and intelligent in our own right. I like that.
There you go. I'm removing that nothing wrong with the humility, Ray. I'm just messing with you. This has been great. We've had a great time talking, and this is a great world to kind of venture into and just learn about. I love the idea too of investigating even some investments in this because, look at our economy, you're looking for ways, the stock market, things like that. I don't know that we always consider this as an option. Now, this isn't something that you and I talked about before. Right. You didn't pitch. I don't even know, the name of what you would do or whatever. I just think this is something great that maybe the public can become more informed about. How can people reach you? I want them to know, where can they watch the Crude Truth?
Oh yeah.
What is your website for your actual company? And tell us more. How can people connect?
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, the Crude Truth, I can't believe this website was still around 3 years ago, but it's actually thecrudetruth.com. That was, I think, an $11 buy. I mean, I can't believe that was around 3 years ago. So that's where you can get my show. I'm also obviously on YouTube for the Crude Truth. And then for Pecos, we've got our Pecos companies. We got Pecos Country Operating, Pecos Country Energy, along with some new ones. But that's all at pecoscountry.com.
Okay. And then on social media, are you?
Yes, I do social media. I'm not the best. Obviously, I've got a great LinkedIn page that I like. So you can find me on LinkedIn, as well as I'm on Twitter as Truth_Crude, Truth_Crude, and Instagram at Oil Income.
All right.
Yes.
Well, there you go, friends. There you have it. We were on with the Texas oil executive, Rey Treviño, and you can find him on social media. Don't forget to visit the Crude Truth on YouTube. Find him out there. He's out there. Trust me. I looked for you yesterday and I found you. I found you. So it was great having you on. Rey, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Teresa, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've had a great time. Well, friends, there you have it. We'll see you again soon. God bless. Are we good?
Yeah. No, we're still streaming.
It's just, did it end then?
No, we're live.